Welcome back to Fresh Movie Recaps. Today, we are going to continue our recap of the blockbuster miniseries The Day of the Jackal. Be advised, major spoilers ahead. We begin in France, where the Jackal is driving, but his thoughts are distracted. He notices a bird before crashing into the back of a van. Attempting to resolve the issue, he offers to pay the van driver to let it go. However, the driver insults him and flags down a police officer to report the incident. The Jackal provides the officer with an ID identifying him as Anthony Mallison. The officer then asks him to open the car's boot and inspect the bag inside. Upon searching, the officer discovers a gun. The Jackal quickly kills both the officer and the driver, staging the scene to make it appear as though they shot each other. Later, Bianca visits George, who runs a sniper-themed WhatsApp group. George suspects Bianca's guy is skilled but also unusually lucky, and he believes the man may have a British Army background. When Bianca inquires about the group, she asks if any of its members could have made the shot. George firmly denies it, though he mentions one individual who served at Sterling Lines after his time. He provides her with a name, Alexander Duggan. George reveals that Duggan was reportedly killed by an IED outside Lashkargah. Bianca contacts Damien and instructs him to gather all available information on Alexander Duggan, even though he is presumed to be dead. Meanwhile, old Dag Charles goes for a swim. Upon his return, he learns that a contract has been placed on his life. Keith Canvey informs him of the threat, but Ull admits he's already aware. Although Keith insists Ull stay put until the situation is resolved, Ull is determined to travel to Tallinn to make the announcement of the new software. The Jackal arrives in Tallinn, Estonia, to scout the venue where his next target will launch their software. He surveys the location, assesses security measures, and tests the metal detectors before entering a concert. As he moves stealthily around the venue, he examines a door above the audience to determine if it offers a vantage point for his shot. However, when the door unexpectedly opens, the Jackal accidentally drops his phone and finds himself hanging from a cord. He manages to climb back up unnoticed. After the concert, he searches for his phone. A venue worker offers to help and asks for his number. They call the number and locate the phone. A man named Rasmus assists him in recovering it. The Jackal introduces himself as Peter. Later, Bianca and Vince visit Larry Stoke, Norman's brother, in the hospital. Bianca tortures him by smothering him with a pillow, periodically allowing him to breathe, to extract information. They offer him a deal, 5 years in prison if he cooperates. When Larry refuses, Bianca intensifies the torture. Meanwhile, the Jackal contacts Norman, the gunsmith who built the sniper rifle used in the assassination of the Prime Minister, requesting another weapon. He specifies the target is 75 meters away and shares his idea to bypass metal detectors and ultra-sensitive scanners. However, Norman, injured from an earlier encounter with Bianca's team, says he is out of action. The Jackal offers to meet him for assistance. Under pressure, Larry finally reveals that Norman is in Budapest and describes his location as a large white building. Separately, Damien updates Bianca on Alexander Duggan, revealing he was a detail-oriented loner whose military unit specialized in eliminating Taliban leaders before being wiped out by an IED in Helmand in 2013. Bianca asks Damien to verify if Duggan's body was recovered. In Budapest, the Jackal meets Norman, who takes him to a secluded location stocked with weapons. Together, they work on designing a fracture boot capable of passing through security and assembling into a rifle. Norman explains the boot, made from plastic and polymer, can evade scanners but has limitations, such as a disposable barrel that allows only 7 or 8 shots. Later, the two discuss a previous operation in Belarus, during which Norman mentions being shot by a black, British woman. The Jackal realizes it was an MI6 snatch squad after him and accuses Norman of withholding information. Norman insists he received a warning from an anonymous source. Bianca receives intel about Norman's location, an abandoned factory. She and Vince rush to Budapest. As Bianca and Vince approach the factory, the Jackal practices with his makeshift rifle in the woods, using a watermelon for target practice. Later, while in the car talking to his wife, he notices Bianca's car heading toward Norman's compound. The Jackal tries to warn Norman, who is asleep, to flee and clean up. When Norman finally answers, the Jackal urges him to escape, but it's too late. Bianca and her team storm the compound, resulting in a gunfight. Outnumbered, Norman is captured and tortured but refuses to cooperate. While searching the premises, Bianca finds what she suspects are the Jackal's belongings and orders the team to keep watch, believing he'll return. The Jackal eventually kills Norman with a headshot before he can reveal anything significant. Pursued by the police, the Jackal escapes on horseback. In the woods, the Jackal is knocked off the horse. Bianca tracks him, forcing him to dive into open water to evade her gunfire. Though uncertain if she hit him, the Jackal resurfaces later and finds shelter in a barn. However, a local man confronts him with a rifle, knocks him out, and leaves him captive inside. The following morning, Attila speaks to the Jackal, who is tied up. Unable to communicate due to the language barrier, Attila decides to release him. However, just as he is about to let him go, he notices the Jackal's weapon and leads him back inside at gunpoint. Attila calls his brother to tell him about the man he caught. Laszlo, who speaks English, helps to communicate with the stranger. The Jackal explains he can pay them money, prompting Laszlo and another man to agree to come. Attila tries to force the Jackal to eat some bread. As he shoves it into the Jackal's mouth, the Jackal headbutts him, knocks him unconscious. Meanwhile, the police issue warnings about a dangerous foreigner, advising them to stay away from him. Gabor calls Attila to caution him about the stranger, but it's too late. Attila is already dead. The Jackal takes Attila's gun and attempts to escape using one of his vehicles, but it won't start. As he tries another vehicle, the other men arrive, forcing him to hide. The second vehicle starts just as Gabor fires at it. Gabor checks under the vehicle and is shot by the Jackal. A frightened Laszlo does nothing but apologizes to the Jackal and agrees to drive him. At Norman's compound, Bianca and Vince learn that 2 bodies have been found. Bianca suspects it's the Jackal and they rush there. Meanwhile, the Jackal, unable to unlock Attila's phone, discards it and uses Laszlo's phone to call his wife, Nuria. He admits he's in serious trouble and unsure if he'll survive. He reveals he's in Budapest, Hungary, and Nuria offers to come find him. The Jackal asks her to bring something with her. Bianca and Vince arrive at the scene of the murders, where the police have lifted multiple fingerprints, but note a victim's phone is missing. Osita informs Bianca that the hunt for the Jackal will now be called Operation Anubis. Despite orders to return, Bianca wants to stay in Hungary, believing the Jackal is still nearby. While driving, the Jackal tells Laszlo he regrets coming that morning and warns him that if anything happens to him, his colleagues will retaliate. The Jackal eventually lets Laszlo go, leaving him alive. He calls Nuria again, asking her to email him. Elsewhere, Zina Jansson receives a message from the Jackal, who reassures her that he will deliver despite waning faith in him. Nuria emails the Jackal to confirm her arrival. They meet at a motel, where she delivers his belongings. The Jackal thanks her but insists she leave, fearing he's involved her too much. Nuria hugs him, expressing her fear. Later, she questions why he needs a disguise. The Jackal explains that people are after him and he must escape. The Jackal uses makeup to disguise himself while Nuria is watching, puts on his nose. He arrives at the airport disguised as an old man in a wheelchair. Nuria leaves him. Bianca and Vince are also at the same airport. Osita informs Isabel about UDC's upcoming speech in Tallinn, suspecting the Jackal might be there. Isabel agrees to divert Bianca to Tallinn, and she and Vince receive the update. Meanwhile, the Jackal waits on the plane, reading a newspaper, with Bianca unknowingly seated in front of him. Upon arrival, the Jackal takes a taxi. Bianca and Vince also check into their hotel. At his Airbnb, the Jackal removes his disguise. That evening, 2 police officers visit him regarding a nearby burglary. After asking a series of questions, the female officer requests his phone number. He provides one, and she calls it to confirm. Once alone, the Jackal contacts Rasmus and invites him out for a drink. They meet at a pub, drink, and later head to Rasmus' place to spend the night together. Later, in a library in Tallinn, Zina meets the Jackal. He informs her that MI6 agents Bianca and Vince arrived at the British embassy the previous night. He asks if her team can handle them. Surprised that he seeks her help, she agrees. She also mentions that UDC is scheduled to arrive on Friday. However, the Jackal refuses to share his plan and demands immediate payment upon completing the job. At the British Embassy, Vince and Bianca join Operation Anubis. Osita Halcrow briefs them, stating that their liaison, Oscar, is searching all hotels. Meanwhile, Cole creates a composite sketch of the Jackal, and Bianca is confident it is him. At the venue, Rasmus hands the Jackal a passkey. The Jackal scouts for a vantage point to take his shot. Later, he returns the passkey and leaves. Back at the embassy, they receive word that the female officer identified the composite sketch as Peter Gibson, who had been staying at an Airbnb the previous night. As Bianca and Vince wait for their van, a car approaches and they start opening fire outside at the two, only escaping by a whisker. Osita arrives at the scene, urging Bianca to return inside, but she insists on heading to the Airbnb. When they arrive, Oscar and an armed tactical team storm the location, only to find it empty. A female officer claims to have seen someone matching the composite sketch at the Airbnb. Outside the venue, he explains that the alarm was likely triggered by his boot, which we know is concealing the gun. After inspecting his bag, the guard lets him pass. Back at the Airbnb, Cover confirms that the suspect had Peter Gibson's passport and used a credit card to pay for the rental. At the concert de Salle, the Jackal purchases snacks and water with cash before taking his seat. When the concert pianist pauses, he makes his way to the upper floor and crawls to a ventilation vent above the pianist. He retrieves a gun hidden in his boot, attaches a silencer, and waits. As the concert ends and the lights dim, the Jackal dreams of warfare and death, recalling the first time he met Nuria. Later, Bianca and Vince approach Keith, showing him a composite sketch of the assassin. Keith questions its accuracy. She also presents an image of the Jackal in disguise. The following day, invited guests arrive at the venue. Keith sends Chris to inspect the building one last time. The Jackal, hidden in the ventilation system, spots Bianca. Rima Buttons and her entourage arrive, and Keith informs Vince and Bianca that UDC will be there in 10 minutes. From his vantage point, the Jackal watches the guests file in. Keith advises UDC to stay behind bulletproof glass. As the event begins, the Jackal emerges from the ventilation vent. On the upper floor, he kills a security guard. From the hanging rails, he watches UDC walk onto the stage and address the guests from behind the glass. The Jackal keeps his weapon trained on UDC. Just as he is about to fire, another assassin, Chris, shoots at UDC. The Jackal fires a shot but misses. Armed guards quickly surround UDC and escort him to safety. Chris is shot. Amid the chaos, the Jackal blends in with the crowd and exits the building. Outside, Rasmus, recognizing him, confronts the Jackal, who had claimed he was leaving the country. The Jackal kills Rasmus to silence him. Thanks for watching.